Happy Friday!
Happy Fri YAY!
Woo-hoo. Today we are going to dig into a big hot topic, as always, search engine optimization or SEO, which is a huge, huge field. There's a lot of information out there. So we're just going to break it down and give you all 3 simple tips that you can use just as a baseline of getting started with SEO. So fun fact, so a lead that comes to a business through a search engine, through search engine rankings is 8.5 times more likely to convert to a sale than if it was an outbound lead. So everyone wants more search engine leads, right? Everybody is like, well, of course I want more leads to my website. And so there's a ton of information out there in the website digital marketing SEO world about how to elevate your website in those search engine rankings, and get more eyes on your site, on your company, and be more competitive. So we're just going to break this down into 3 simple SEO tips. And some of these are kind of obvious, I think, in a lot of ways, but we're going to give you a little bit of insight into why and how those work. So number 1 is to add content. And this is a really popular tip. It's something that almost everyone knows. And if you've been in business for more than a minute, you're probably aware that adding content to your website is one of the best ways to help your rankings in search engines. But it's not just about rankings. It used to be that you could kind of battle Google and get around what they wanted by just lumping in all kinds of keywords and phrases that were being used in searches all the time, and that would boost your visibility. But that's not really the case these days. A lot of their filters and things that they have in place in the search engines, it really gives you a negative, a big thumbs down from them if you're just throwing all kinds of content and words together that don't really keep your user engaged and interacting with your website. So that's what we want to focus you on. With adding content, you want to still use those keywords, but you really want your content to be of substance, to be of value to your audience, and focus more on ROI than you are focusing on rankings. Because those users, now what it appears to look like is that Google actually awards you. If your user stays on that page longer, that has more content to interact with and learn from, you get boosted from that, rather than just having content and keywords necessarily. And you have to think about it. It's a little bit pointless, right? If your website ranks really high in the top 3 or 4 search engine spots for a particular keyword or phrase, if you rank really high, but then the user goes to your site and it's just full of fluff and they can't really find the information that they want and need, then they're going to drop off and they're going to go to some other site that does give them what they want and need, and they're going to be more loyal and go back to that company on a regular basis.
Right. So you need to have a good balance.
Yeah, there has to be definitely more value, because it's pointless to take the time to even load all of those keywords in and just dump it in there like that. You have to play the long game with content. So Carrie, you want to share number 2?
Sure. So the second one is to use data. So you can't improve unless you know how you're performing, as well as what you're doing wrong and what you're doing right. It is so important to look at your analytics. And if you didn't know, your Google Analytics is free.
It is.
That's a big one that people always miss on. They don't know, and they're like, oh, do I have to pay for this service? Because it's Google. So you would think, oh, if I need to get the analytics, I'd have to pay. Nope, it is free. There's absolutely no reason not to use it.
Yeah, and a lot of website content management systems have analytics in place. If you just want somewhere to start, I think we have a few examples of what that might look like. If you have a WordPress site, for example, the plugin called Jetpack gives you kind of just your basic stats. So it'll tell you, what your referring links are, what pages and posts are the most popular, and the location of whoever's visiting your site. So whether it's, the city or the state, is how local it gets. So you can get some kind of just basic information that way. And most, like I said, most content management systems have that in place. So whether it's WordPress or it's Squarespace or it's Weebly or whatever you might be using, you probably have something to start with. But if you just want to like ramp it up a little bit and use something that is a little more in depth, or if you have a specific goal that you can't get the information from those kind of baseline stats, then use Google Analytics. It's a great tool.
Yeah, and if you guys want to learn more about it, or if you have any more, if you just want us to do a class, let us know in the comments if you would like us to do a BizTools class on Google Analytics.
Yeah, I've been tossing that idea around for a little while. So if people want it, I'll make it happen. Because Google Analytics is, when you log in there, it's, a bit daunting for sure. There's a whole lot going on in there, and maybe just being able to navigate those main menus and figuring out where to find the information that you need would be really helpful, probably. So use your data, though. You got to use your data. We harp on that all the time. But it's really important. So number 3, our third tip is that you want to make sure and improve or maintain, depending on where you're at, with your website speed. So how fast does your website load? There are all kinds of free tools you can use to test your website speed, but it's really important to keep up with this and keep your website moving quickly and loading quickly, because 40% of consumers will abandon a website that takes more than 3 seconds to load. So you have 3 seconds. And so, fun fact, the average website takes 17 seconds to load. So that's a huge difference that a lot of people are missing out on this. And it just signals, Google uses that. They announced this, 10 years ago. They don't give away a lot of their secrets, right? They like to keep a lot of things locked down. But it was probably around 2010-ish that they announced that this is one of their main factors in determining the legitimacy of a website. So speed is very important. And when it comes to speed, there are some different things that we see that typically slow websites down. First is image size, right, Kara?
Oh yeah, image size is a big one for sure. A lot of people don't know that images hold a lot of size, especially good quality. So it's so important when you're working with images that they are the appropriate web size. You can easily Google what those appropriate sizes are. Sometimes in your website, it'll give you information. If you're using Canva, a lot of times it will help you resize. But also exporting, when you export an image, there'll usually be a save for web sizing, and that one is the best one because compressing images can be quite daunting.
Yeah. And then even in Canva, when you're downloading something, there's a little box to compress. And if you're using it on your website, you always want to get that compressed version.
Yeah, I make KBs instead of MBs is a pretty important thing.
Yeah, kilobytes are pretty ideal. If you're in the megabyte range with this file size, then you are way too big.
Yeah, I think it's like the max for it to be good quality but remain small is, I think, 500 KB, right?
Yeah, ideally. So, if you can get it down smaller, and the thing to note, just a quick little extra pro tip on this, you can go back, like if in WordPress, we work in WordPress primarily, right? So it's our main website management program that we work with. In WordPress, you can go in after you've uploaded your image and you can resize that and you can scale it down and resize it and change that file size. However, if you really want to do your compression and resizing, it's important to do that before you upload it because it does cache that on the back end of your website. The original size is still cached in the back end. So that can really slow you down. The other part with this that we typically see is excessive or inactive plugins, themes, widgets, all those extra little bits of code that get added to a website to make it more functional or have some really cool features can really drag your site down.
Think of it as when you have your phone and you have a whole bunch of apps or pictures or videos that you're not using. And then eventually when you've hit that, you get that little notification that says, uh-oh, your storage is full. And then you notice that your phone starts to slow down, your battery dies a lot faster. You're having all sorts of little issues. It's very similar to that.
Yeah, so if you want to, you just need to make sure and remove anything that's inactive or that you're not using or is completely unnecessary. It really depends. People ask us all the time, well, like, what's the ideal? One of the great things about WordPress is that you can use all these plugins. You don't have to hard code stuff. You can just add a plugin that adds some features and functionality. And people always ask me, well, what number is a good number? First of all, that depends on your hosting package and what you're allowed for space on your website. Secondly, I would say anything less than 20 generally is a good idea. But what really matters more than the quantity of your plugins is the quality. So there are some plugins that just are not high quality code. So they make a lot of extra work happen for your website viewer that they don't see it, but it happens on the back end. And also what matters more is where those plugins load. So for example, if you use a lot of things like a contact form, that's a front end loading plugin. If you're using a contact form, it loads on the front end, the user sees it. Those tend to be more clunky and slow your site down than something that might happen on the back end that's more of a capability for you as the website manager or owner. But all of that is like an entirely different Fri YAY or a workshop or something. I could, like, see me like pausing right now. It's because I'm like catching myself from going down the rabbit hole. But just it's the same way for themes. Just 2 themes is good. You need to have your main theme that you're using, and then you need to have a backup in case that breaks, so your content is automatically put somewhere. And then sidebar widgets, clean those up, keep it as clean and clutter-free as possible. It's really cool to like add all these extra bells and whistles, but that really can slow your site down in a lot of ways. So our 3 simple SEO tips, once again, are to add content, use your data, and then improve your website's loading speed. So those are our 3 tips. I hope you all found them helpful. If you have questions about any of this or you want to learn more about SEO or website, anything, please drop that in the comments. Let us know. We would be happy to bring, we don't really do a lot of Fri YAYs on anything like this. So, but we'd be up for it for sure.
If you'd like us to start, just let us know.
All right, so thanks for tuning in, guys. We will see you next week, and have a great weekend.
Bye.